What if a machine can receive messages from the dead? That sounds like something from science fiction, but it's a question that has haunted inventors for over a century. The idea that we could use electricity and radio waves to somehow bridge the gap between our world and the next isn't new at all. In fact, it was a concept that even captured the imagination of the great Thomas Edison. But long before our modern era of ghost hunting gadgets, one of the first and strangest tales of the phenomenon took root. And it's a story that, whether you see it as fact or folklore, has become a cornerstone of paranormal lore. The legend starts back in 1913 with a simple homemade telegraph machine that supposedly started getting messages from an unknown source. And the real terror, however, began when the ghostly Morse code continued, even after the machine was completely cut off from any power. And this is the story of that machine, and the chilling messages it allegedly received from the other side. The story, as it's been passed down, centers on a London solicitor named David Wilson. Wilson was an amateur enthusiast fascinated by the new electrical technology that was taking the world by storm. And in his home, he built his own telegraph machine. And for a while, it was just a hobby. But then the strange messages began. And at first they were faint. You could easily dismiss them as stray signals or interference. But they got stronger, tapping out distinct letters in Morse code. And the communications were fragmented and bizarre. And then one day in 1915, with a witness in the room, the machine supposedly tapped out a clear message. With great difficulty, await message, 5 days, 6 evenings. But the most terrifying part of this legend is the claim that these messages kept coming even after the machine was unplugged. And the rhythmic ghostly beeps were said to continue, tapping out cryptic signals with no discernible source of power. And after supposedly publishing an account of his experiments, the story goes that David Wilson and his mysterious machine vanished from the historical record, leaving behind nothing but a chilling and completely unverifiable tale. While the story of David Wilson lives firmly in the realm of legend, it brings up a question that never really goes away. Can our technology act as a doorway for the unexplained? This question brings us to a much more recent and much more tragic event. On September 12, 2008, a Metrolink commuter train was in a catastrophic collision in Chatsworth, California. And 25 people lost their lives, including a man named Charles Peck. And he was traveling to Los Angeles for a job interview, hoping to finally move closer to his fiancée. Investigators would later conclude that Peck had died on impact. But in the desperate, frantic hours that followed the crash, something strange began to happen. Peck's family, his son, brother, sister, and fiancé, all started receiving calls from his cell phone. And throughout the night, reports claimed that as many as 35 calls were made from his phone. And when his loved ones picked up, they heard only static before the line went dead. And when they tried calling back, it went straight to voicemail. And those incoming calls gave the family hope that he was still alive, trapped somewhere in the wreckage. Rescue teams even used the phone signal to help pinpoint the location of his body in the mangled train car. He was found about an hour after the phantom calls finally stopped. His cell phone was reportedly never recovered from the wreckage. These stories are part of a wider field known as instrumental telecommunications, or ITC, the use of electronic devices to contact spirits. And the field was formally named in the 1970s, but the idea is much older. Researchers in the 1950s were already documenting mysterious voices that seemed to appear on tape recordings. And proponents believe that spirits can manipulate energy and sound waves to form words and messages through our devices like radios, recorders, and even phones. And of course, there are far more down-to-earth explanations. Skeptics often point to something called auditory pareidolia, and that's the tendency for our brains to find familiar patterns like voices and random noise. Think of seeing a face in the clouds, but for your ears. In the case of phantom phone calls, technical glitches are a very real possibility. Cross signals, network errors, or even a phone's built-in features could cause strange behavior. There's even phantom vibration syndrome, where people feel their phone buzzing in their pocket when it isn't, which shows how our brains can create sensations we expect to feel. And in the Charles Peck case, some have theorized the calls could have been from a damaged phone repeatedly trying to redial its last numbers until the battery finally died. While that sounds plausible, for many, it doesn't fully explain the sheer number of calls and how they were distributed to so many different family members. The gap between a technical glitch and a message from beyond is where these mysteries really live. What do you think is behind these stories? Is it proof of something more, or just our pattern-seeking brains and faulty electronics? Drop your theories in the comments below. And if you enjoy digging into these kinds of unexplained mysteries, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next investigation. From the unverified legend of a haunted telegraph in 1913 to the widely reported phantom calls from a 2008 train crash, the idea of the ghost in the machine just won't go away. Stories like David Wilson's, while almost certainly folklore, stick around because they tap into a fundamental human question. What happens after we die? And could our own technology, the very thing that defines our modern world, be the key to finally answering that question? Whether these are just strange tales, technical anomalies, or something else entirely, they force us to listen a little closer to that static. And they make us wonder if, just maybe, someone's trying to call. That's something for you guys to ponder. Y'all have a good night.